Hello, everyone. Welcome again or for the first time, to day 3. It is marketing day at Prep for Wave Week, and we have another friend of Prep for Wave Week and the strategic travel entrepreneur talking to us about the legalities of marketing, which is not something that we normally talk about in the travel industry. But because so many of us are deep in the marketing world, or we support you with marketing, or you love to do marketing for your travel business, I thought this was a really important topic so that you were aware just of different things. It just adds on top of like the contracts that you need to have in your business, the agreements, the disclaimers, and all that. You have to be aware that there's certain things in terms of marketing and legal that you need to know as well. And that's why Tom Carpenter is here again. So thank you and welcome back, Tom.
Thanks so much, Rita. It's great to see you and to chat with you again. It feels like just yesterday that we were doing this for last year's Prep for Wave Week,
Right.
and here we are again. So,
Yes, thank goodness. And thank goodness that you are such a gem to the industry, that you
mm,
have both the legal side and the travel business aspect, because it's hard to kind of like connect the two.
well, that is very gracious of you. A little embarrassing, but thank you. That's kind.
Thank you. Now, before we get started, do you have any disclaimers before we get
Yes,
deep into it?
absolutely. So, whenever I do something like this, by participating in this webinar or watching this video, we're not creating any kind of attorney-client relationship between you and my law firm, and this might be viewed as attorney advertising in the states where I'm licensed, and prior outcomes don't guarantee future results. So I've just made all those disclaimers. If you need to find me, my website is carpentertaylor.com. And I'm at tcarpenter at carpentertaylor.com if you need to reach me.
Awesome. Thank you. So, what is the first thing, like when you think marketing and being like legally legit, especially in the travel business, what's one thing that kind of pops out to you, or a trend that you've been noticing?
Well, there's a lot of there are just a lot of a lot of areas where legal and marketing intersect in the travel industry, and so it's really hard
Okay.
to pick just one. Um,
Okay.
One of the things that I think is important is because we are booking agents for suppliers when we're selling travel as travel agents, travel advisors. We are marketing our own businesses, but we are also marketing the products of other companies. And that's
Mhm.
kind of a weird, complicated place to be. And so when you are, I mean, I think the first rule of marketing, as far as legal consideration goes, is you are legally obligated to not misrepresent the products of the clients, the products of the suppliers that you sell.
Mhm.
You can't misrepresent those products. You owe a fiduciary duty to the suppliers that you book, so you're not permitted to undercut or undermine their pricing policies. So if you're rebating things like commission, that's a problem. If you're advertising the product at a price that you're not permitted to sell, that's also
Mhm.
a problem. So when I draft terms and conditions documents and when I do webinars about terms and conditions, I spend a lot of time talking about how as the travel agent, you're kind of in between the client. The agent part of travel agency means that you are a booking agent for the supplier, but as a
Mhm.
travel advisor, you also owe a duty of care to your client. So
Okay.
you have a fiduciary duty to the supplier and a duty of care to the client. And being in that middle position where you have obligations that go in both directions is kind of complicated. So hopefully your terms and conditions documents clarify that the
Yeah.
supplier um, uh, handles the pricing policy and things like that. One thing that I'm seeing a lot of people, especially new businesses that are coming into the industry, there are a lot of people who really want to seem like they're large and in charge. And I get that, but they often kind of hide the fact. Sometimes they'll hide who the supplier is. Sometimes they'll market something as though they're the tour operator. And that creates a whole bunch of
Okay.
legal risk. So my advice to any travel advisor is stay in your lane. You don't want to be the tour operator. There's a ton of legal risk that attaches to that.
Okay. When you say, so I know you were talking a lot about pricing when we're advertising, I guess, almost on the behalf of suppliers. Pricing is a big thing that comes into it. Is there anything else? Because something that came to mind is like, would it be that maybe I'm upselling a certain product that's not really a premium or luxury product? Is that there any iffiness in that?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you don't want to represent something as being all inclusive if it's not inclusive.
Okay.
You want to be clear, either directing them to the suppliers, um, website or the marketing materials that the supplier is giving you is
Mm-hmm.
always safer than kind of doing it yourself, which is one reason I say don't make yourself look like the tour operator. Don't think that you know how to sell the supplier's product better than they do, because
Mm-hmm.
they've invested in the market research, right? And
Right.
so if you're making characterizations about their product that they're not making, then that's probably going to be something that's going to be a problem for you.
Okay. And when you say not to characterize yourself as a tour operator, so what would you classify as like the differences? What does a tour operator do differently than what a travel advisor or seller does?
Well, there are a bunch of things. The first thing is that there are courts that have held that you have a legal obligation to let people know who your supplier is, who they're
Mm-hmm.
buying the trip from. So things that get people in trouble, if you're taking direct payments and that money is flowing through your hands,
Mm-hmm.
um, that is a big thing that makes you look like a tour operator. If you're marketing a come with, your E&O insurance probably thinks of you as a tour operator if you do come with me trips. Even if you say, hey, I found great price, I've got a great group rate on the newest Royal Caribbean ship. Come with me, and we're going to sail on Royal Caribbean. If you're doing those kinds of come with me trips, your errors and omissions insurance policy is going to think of you as a tour operator for that. So make sure that you have the right policy in place for something like that. But the more you try to brand that with your own brand, try to, especially if you're going to a DMC and taking it, having them put something together that's custom, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're turning around and marking that up and selling that at a higher price and processing the payments. All of those things are things that I'm seeing travel agencies do more and more frequently, and all of those things carry a lot of risk. So just be careful about that. So how you're marketing yourself, always disclose who the supplier partner is in your marketing. That's a
Okay.
good advice. There are also seller of travel laws to consider related to marketing. If you're marketing to people in California, you're required to have a seller of travel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, whether you're marketing your own business or whether you're marketing things that your suppliers are selling. So
Okay. So really kind of initiate. It's not Rita's trip, it's a trip on X ship, and I happen to be coming along.
yeah, I mean, even with that, the insurance companies are taking a very narrow view of what takes you out of being a travel agent. So
Okay.
your terms and conditions can help you too, though. If your clients are agreeing that they understand that you're the booking agent, sometimes even when you book trips with a client, sometimes even when you just book, FIT trips, even when you disclose that this is a tour operated by Globus or by Trafalgar or whatever, sometimes people think, oh, when I bought that trip from you, no, 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 you didn't buy it from me. You bought it from Globus. I just used your credit card to make the payment with the supply.
Okay.
So people could get that twisted, but your terms and conditions should be really clear, and also your marketing should be pretty clear too. That this is a Globus tour, and I've got a group rate on it, and you can join my group, and we're going with Globus.
Oh, right.
Excuse me.
No.
That's how I'd recommend
Okay.
framing.
Okay. That's really great to know because I know that that became a really popular thing this
Mhm.
past year are those come with me trips.
Yeah,
So I
and
was
you
not
can
even
and you
aware.
can yeah, and you can do them safely. Just don't make them think that, it's that you are the supplier.
Deal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, right. So when we're marketing, and I'm thinking like social media marketing or email marketing, even website, because lots of this information is going to be floating through different channels.
Mm-hmm.
Are there kind of some concrete do's or don'ts, or do we have to put special disclaimers or head to these terms to read more information?
Yeah, so social media is kind of front and center. A lot of people are concerned about social media because of the lawsuit that's pending in Texas right now.
Oh,
And
what's that?
uh, so a travel advisor in Texas was dragged into a lawsuit for something that, this is my opinion, is clearly not her fault or her responsibility. But one of the, the client, as I understand it, the client went to an all-inclusive resort and wound up blind drunk wandering to the resort next door, tried to climb through a window, and unfortunately died. And so there was a lawsuit as a result of that, and the travel agent got dragged into the lawsuit. And one of the things that's front and center in that lawsuit, if you look at the pleading, is that the travel agent in her social media posts was advertising Mexico as a very safe destination, and because of those social media posts, are evidence in the lawsuit. So I would just say, be very careful about representations that you make about the quality of a product or the safety or security. Obviously you should put something on social media that you wouldn't say to a client. So if a client came to me and said, "Hey, is it safe to go to Mexico?" I would never answer that question, and I certainly wouldn't put it on my social media. But
Okay.
if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, is it safe to go to Mexico?" I would say to them, "Well, I would be comfortable going to Mexico, but I'm not you, and you need to make that decision for yourself." So, think
Oh,
about it. I think frame it that way. If you're putting something on social media that makes a representation, you have to be able to back that up. And if it turns out not to be true, there are ways that could come around um, and bite you in places, bite you somewhere that you don't want to be
interesting.
bitten. So
Right. So could you even like put like an asterisk and say something in your advertising or your social media marketing that's like, these are my personal opinions, like you're still responsible for doing your own research or something like that? Or
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, I would just shy away from making statements that are clearly not your opinion, right? So if you say, "I had a great time in Mexico," that's your opinion, and that's clearly your opinion. And that's different from saying, or saying, "I felt very safe in Mexico." That's very different than saying Mexico is safe. So think about it through that lens.
okay. So
Your
instead of making
opinions,
like an all-encompassing, this is my personal thought.
right? Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And of course you don't want to put something out there that is just flat wrong, right? So
Right.
if you tell people, "Oh, you don't need a passport book, you can travel to Europe with using a passport card," well, that's just wrong, right?
Right.
That's something where you're going to want to have your errors and omissions insurance in place. But the gray areas are places where you're making representations. If you're representing that you know, specialty coffee drinks are included on this cruise and they're not,
Hmm.
well, that's something you don't want to put on your social media because it's wrong. You
Right.
so shy away from that. It's much easier and better to say, this cruise line is having a fantastic promo right now, and call me if you want to get in on it because I think it's a great deal.
Okay.
That's much better than saying things like, every stateroom gets a whatever it is, because maybe they don't, and if they don't,
Right.
maybe they thought they were because of you, and then you're in trouble, right?
Okay.
The other thing about about agency websites, there are a lot of things about websites that are kind of important to keep in mind. One is if you've got a blog on your website where you are presenting information as though it's like blogs are almost like kind of on the borderline between advertising and almost journalism, right?
Right.
Stories. You do a blog post about we just went on this Ama Waterways River cruise. It was fantastic. We had great wine, and look at all the fun things we did. The Federal Trade Commission is requiring bloggers to disclose when there is a material relationship between the person who's writing the blog post or the publisher of the blog post and the company that they're endorsing or advertising. So if you have white labeled sites that are attached to your website, if you're getting commission when you sell Ama Waterways, if you're putting up sponsored content, if somebody, a tour operator gives you $200 to put something on your website, if you've got advertising on your website, those are all things that you should probably be disclosing in an advertising disclosure policy.
Okay. Would that include like fam trips?
Possibly, but you can do that in a blanket, you could do it in a blanket post. I mean, I would recommend that if you are putting something up that is sponsored content, like in order to get the free or the discounted trip to Mexico, they're requiring you to write a blog post, then you would need, I would recommend disclosing that at the top or the bottom of that page, but it's complicated. Okay. I mean, you should consult with you should consult with an attorney if you're doing that sort of thing, just to make sure that you're complying with the FTC regulations for bloggers. You can also look those up online. I mean, there are lots of people have blogs, and there are lots of people who have published articles or blog posts about what you need to be compliant, and so you can find a lot of that out there.
Okay.
But it's something that a lot of people, I think, in the travel industry don't necessarily think about.
Okay. Kind of similar to that, because it can be found on the website where people have lead magnets that gets people added onto their email newsletters. So it's presumed that people know when they're signing up for something that they're going to be on some sort of mailing list. But if we're looking in the legal sense of of everything right now, do you have to disclose to somebody that at some point they're going to be added to the email list, or by signing or giving their email, they're going on an email list?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to add somebody, if you've got a lead magnet and here I give you my special packing list for an Alaska cruise, and you're not disclosing to them that that's going to, put them on the mailing list, say to them, if you join my mailing list, I'm happy to give you this, I'm happy to give you my packing list. And you also have to provide them with an opportunity to unsubscribe. Most of the vendors that do MailChimp, Constant Contact, things like that, MailerLite, most of them will have tools for you that if people want to unsubscribe, they make it possible to do that. But the can spam law is what it's called, requires you to let people opt out of your email list.
Okay. Because I think on that same vein with email, a lot of people are concerned with adding their address at the bottom, but I think that is a law that it has to be the actual address that you do business from, and not like a virtual mailbox if you have one. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to be giving legal advice on this,
okay.
But if you have concerns about whether you're in compliance, I mean, for the most part, like I said, the vendors that do emails, MailChimp and Constant Contact, they have information when you sign up for their service, manage your mailing list, where they can provide you with guidance for how they do it. But I mean, courts decide things different ways, and so the law can be interpreted in a number of different ways, and so I would hesitate to give a bright line answer to something like that.
Okay, cool, perfect. You had mentioned before we got on something about an advertising disclosure policy. So
Yeah,
is that similar to what we were just talking
that's
about?
what we were talking about
Okay.
disclosing your, if you're getting commissions from selling products that you're blogging about, if you are getting freebies that you didn't pay for, and the condition of that is that you write a blog post about it. If you're advertising on your blogs, but it doesn't look like advertising, if you have affiliate links, like if you get a kickback if somebody clicks a banner on your website,
Mm-hmm.
or if somebody visits a link to Amazon and they buy the noise canceling headset on Amazon and you get a cut from that, you're supposed to disclose those types of things too.
Okay. So
Yeah.
pretty much anywhere where you might be compensated. What if like a supplier provides a reduced rate and you're on said trip on a reduced rate? Do you have to disclose that even?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, you can take care of this in a big policy, in a policy that's, kind of down along with your, your cookie policy, your data privacy policy, your website terms of use. You can have an advertising disclosure policy attached to that in the footer of your website that just basically says, we may get compensation in the form of commission payments for products that we are blogging about on this website. That's what most people do. I don't know if you know the points guy,
Yes.
who he, I mean, I don't think he understands, just between you and me, I don't think he understands the travel industry the way we do, but he, it's really mostly the way that blog makes money is they have lots of links to credit cards that you can sign up to get credit card points and
Right.
things like that. So, but they are Boy Scouts about making sure that they have the right disclosures, that if they're talking about a credit card that's going to give you points and miles, they absolutely disclose that if you sign up for a credit card through a link on their site, that they get money for that. Or if it's just a post about something that they got for free or discount, they're very clear about when that happens.
Okay.
So they do a really good job of that, I think. So if you wanted to see how other people do it, you could kind of look at their website and see what they do.
Okay. Essentially, like the more information that you put out there, the more covered you
Yeah,
may
I mean,
be.
and you don't have to rub their nose in it. You can just put it in a in a policy at the bottom of your website. That's super easy to do.
Okay. For things like social media, should this be included like at the bottom of posts, or should there be somewhere that says like for more information on something something? I'm not really sure what the right verbiage is. Go
I
to
mean,
this page on the
yeah,
website.
I think it's generally a good idea, especially if you're promoting a deal or a sale or promotion. When the suppliers give you those flyers, there's all that fine print at the bottom of it. You can't really include that. Excuse me. You
Right.
can't really include that in a blog post, right? So, but a little, terms and conditions apply. Contact us for more information is probably a good way to end anything where you're promoting a specific deal.
Hmm.
You have pricing attached to it. There are all sorts of um, there are all sorts of legal requirements about how to display pricing. If you give a price, generally saying starting at with the lead-in price is probably the way you want to do it, instead of this trip costs 1895 and it turns out that that's the price for an inside cabin and you didn't disclose that that's what it was, right? So
Right.
starting at 1895 is better than somebody demanding that you sell them the penthouse suite for 1895 when that costs $30,000. That's going to
Right.
be a problem for you.
Right. Oh gosh. Anything else off the top of your head in terms of marketing that we should be aware of?
One more thing to just mention. If you are using other people's photographs on your website or in your social media posts, make sure that you have permission to use those. So suppliers are going to be, most of your supplier partners are going to have image libraries with images that you can use for free. You can certainly use your own photographs, that's fine. But if you are pulling down pictures from other if you're pulling down pictures from other websites and you just kind of taking those off the internet and using them, you shouldn't be surprised when somebody sends you a letter demanding that you pay them for that.
Mm,
So just be very, very careful about that. You can get insurance. If you want to contact your insurance carrier, you can get insurance for copyright infringement if you inadvertently do, you think you have authorization. But there are lots of places where you can subscribe to get a certain number of downloads from Shutterstock, or
right.
subscribe to use royalty-free images from places. There are libraries and services that will do that for you. But be very careful about when you're using other people's pictures, that you have the right to do that, because that can cost you money.
Okay. And similarly on that, like if you are taking a trip, there's people that are with you, you either hire a photographer or you're taking pictures with other people, kind of needing to get their release to be able to use that.
Yeah, I mean, there's this thing called a right of publicity, which it means that people have the right not to have their image used in advertising or
Okay.
things like that. So, think about, if there's, if somebody found a picture of you, or took a picture of you and thought, oh, I really like the way she looks, and I'm gonna use her picture in an ad for a product that you would never use or never support, or something that you even find offensive or horrifying,
Uh-huh.
you could sue that person, right? So my recommendation is that you ask if you're traveling with clients, or you want to use their pictures, just ask them. You don't need a contract for something like that.
Okay.
If you've got a client, just send them a note that says, hey, I really love that picture that you posted on Facebook. Would you mind if I put that on my Instagram?
Okay.
uh, and if they say no, of course you're not going to do it, right? But I hear lots of people say, oh, I'm going to put that in my terms and conditions, that I have the right to use their vacation photos. I'm like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you ask them?
Yeah.
And of course, if they say yes, and then later on they come back to you and say, you know what, I changed my mind, I don't want to do that.
Hmm.
I've changed my hair, and I don't like the way my hair looks in that thing. Well, pull it down and put something else up instead. So
That is so funny, but also like a really good information, because I've been doing and participating in a lot of trips where there's a lot of content being taken, and that's something that has come up as far as the release, but also who has the rights to be able to use these images that have come up from these trips before.
yeah, I mean, if it's something where you're going to be creating an advertisement, uh, you know, using somebody's image in commercial advertising is different than just putting them on your Facebook page. Look, Bob and Cheryl went to Jamaica, and look what a great time
Mhm.
they're having. Like
Right.
I mean, that's not the same thing as like, I'm selling a Jamaica trip for this price, and it's a week at Moon Palace, and these are the things that are included. And then there's Bob, saying, and Cheryl's like, ooh, and well, okay, that's not what they intended. And if you're using that to sell something, that's different than if you ask them, like, you should ask them. You should maybe also have a contract for something like that, where it's
Mm,
actual advertising and not just something that you're, sharing on social media.
okay. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here and
Of
again
course.
sharing everything. How can people get in touch with you to either get a consult or have you draft up some of these types of agreements or disclaimers?
So I'm at tcarpenter at carpentertaylor.com, CarpenterTaylor
Mhm.
.com. And that's also my website. So I'm more than happy to set up a complimentary consultation if people want to chat with me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
And travel advisors, thank you for tuning in to this session on Marketing Day. Remember, if you have purchased a study hall pass, I will see you between 3 and 4 p.m. Eastern time, where we can talk about this session or any of the other sessions that are happening today. All right, until tomorrow, I'll see ya. Bye.
Bye.